This is part 2 of the weekly Waffle, Racetrack Ralphy Horowitz, with the man who would be known as the voice of reason, except Jared Waitley, the bloke who wrote the Black Caviar book about the once-in-a-lifetime mare.
Let's go.
Jared Waitley. They retired her last week, you might have caught that somewhere, but they did it very well then. I've got to say, excellent. Cynical me, I'm waiting for the big Lux backdrop and some kind of sponsor thing. It was just...
And they kept, by doing that, they kept the emotion in it. No, yeah. I think it was important that she did retire, not contrivedly, but with emotion. And I thought it was fantastic, and I thought most of the media covered it really well, except for Shane Anderson, who got his head in every photo. What's going on there?
No, in fairness, it was Shane Anderson's press conference that Peter Moody butted in on. So yeah, it's a bit of a to Peter Moody.
And Hoss was there, I think.
Well, I can't ever go at Hoss because he's at the big head club.
Exactly. Very selective club.
Now, but well done to Caulfield, who threw the gates open, because racing needs to interact with as many people as possible. Yeah. That gave them a chance to interact with people.
What a good result, 10,000. Oh, yeah. That's a fantastic result.
Yep.
Footy weekend, weather was okay. I think it was a good result. And it was tremendous that they allowed Black Caviar to walk around the Manning Yard and did it like the Apache cat. Mingle with the crowd.
Mingle with the crowd.
It was good.
You mean like at Legends. But here's a bit of a lateral one here. So she walks around, everyone takes the photos. Yeah, what do you call it? The Black Caviar salute.
Black Caviar salute.
Black Caviar salute. So everyone's taking photos because you're allowed to take photos at a racetrack because it's a sporting event. And if you go to a sporting event, you're allowed to take photos. And everyone took photos and it was great. Except if it's a jumps event. And if you look at race 2 on the Racing Network from Ballarat of the second jump, you see Beer Garden just gently amble a lead with the second last fence, just as one bloke's being escorted off the track by 2 security guys just happening to take a photo. Does censorship work anywhere?
No, it doesn't work.
I know there are anti-jump, I'm neutral, I don't care, but there are anti-jumps people trying to do that, but surely what then becomes the story is people just taking a photo getting thrown out the course.
Well, there are, for the accredited journalists and press, there are rules about how close you can get to a jump to take a photo. Now, whether this was a journalist, a press person breaking those rules, if it was the public, I don't know, because I don't know whether you noticed about...
All I can know is that that's what it looked like.
No, but if you notice it, about 2 metres away, there was a lady and another guy taking photos. So I'm assuming there was a little bit more to it.
What I'm saying though, if you're allowed to take photos of Black Caviar from that...
Well, you know, you're not even allowed to, in theory, you're not allowed to take commercial photos. You as a person at the footy.
Exactly.
Or so...
You can't be commercial.
You can't be commercial. But who knows? Yeah. Maybe this person was known for being commercial and they decided that they had to go. They were there for the first round, I think.
Right. But back to the good news side of Caulfield getting the crowds bigger. I hope New South Wales people understand the importance of getting crowds there. The Golden Slipper crowd was abysmal. They are their most important race day. Not the best, probably Doncaster is, but they're most important given what it is.
19,000.
Now, on Sunday, Mighty D's, 17th versus 18th in the AFL, got a bit over 20,000. So more people went to a round 4 clash between 17th and 18th in the AFL than went to the biggest race day in the Sydney calendar. And they're not banging their head against the wall. They're not behind closed doors. They should be, because you need the crowd to interact. That becomes your part of your benchmark of your sport, surely.
Yeah, look, I can understand I'm not going to Randwick.
Yeah.
Weather didn't suit Randwick. I think they got 14,000.
You went on Saturday just gone.
Yeah, I can understand that because there's a lot of publicity about the grandstand not only being half done or quarter done. And it doesn't take much for people to say, oh, well, I won't go, I'll go when the grandstand's better. But the Slipper is considered their Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
To get 19,000 is abysmal. But again, we read in the Sydney Morning Herald, racing's going great again this week. Oh, it's wonderful.
I thought there was an ad. But no, it was actually...
All the champions have retired.
It was an article. I thought it was a press release.
Well, all the champions are retired, but it's wonderful racing. It's going enormous.
Speaking of the champions retiring, we'll get to what happened on the track with Sydney. But Piero's retired now, and then on Sunday I see the ATC Racing sent out, well done to the owners of Piero. You were great. Have a great retirement. Imagine in footy, Buddy Franklin retiring, or you know, so I'm going to go into business.
Wave him away.
Good luck in business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, I can understand.
Buddy would go right at Sturgis.
I can understand the business side of it.
Yep.
It's commercially, that's fine. down the track in 20 years, breeders, don't tell me that racing's going bad because you're retiring the good horses. So we retire a horse to breed 100 horses a year that are nowhere near as good as him.
Yep. That's great, and not racing as an older horse.
They wouldn't have lost anything by racing him on. There's obviously health risks by racing him on.
Yep.
But there would be no risks to his commercial viability to race a horse like that on.
And this isn't about Piero per se, or the owner of Piero per se, but the incentive has to be there for the good horses to stay on the track. Now, the way to incentivise it is just as when the best athletes weren't going to the Olympics because of the amateur v professional sports.
Money.
All of a sudden, money. Rugby union tried to hold up the amateur ideal until they lost all their good players to rugby league. You, in your era, Dan, you're a bit older than me. Paul Sheehan retired from Test cricket, did he not, to become a school principal or something?
About 26 years.
Yeah. One of my great players, as in my club, Melbourne, Stewie Spencer, retired to set up a business in Wangaratta or something. He was a Hall of Fame player. Yeah. Eventually, though, professional sports up their money. Now, racing as a professional sport has to up the money that the best horses can win. But there's a problem here because the people running the sport are inbreeding. So do they want to incentivise the best horses to stay out on the track? When they've spent $200 million on a new grandstand, wouldn't it be a good idea to have some people in it?
Yes, watching the good horses go
Watching the good horses go around, because they tend to get people through the door. And don't tell me it's all about trainers and jockeys, because on a Wednesday at Canterbury or at Sandown, all those good jockeys and good trainers are there in front of 3 men and a dog, except the dog's not allowed in.
Let's put Black Caviar apart because they campaigned her brilliantly over 4 years.
And she's her own rule.
She deserves her retirement. But for All Too Hard and Piero, they wouldn't have been retired 10 or 15 years ago.
Yep.
No way. Because they would consider that the 4-year-old campaign was probably the key campaign. What a shame. And the big issue that I see is that we're going to lose these core group at a time when we need them most.
Yep.
Racing needs its heroes. It can't be having heroes standing in paddocks.
So instead of saying it's fantastic, they should stay on, they've got to incentivise them money-wise. Now, if that's $5 million for any Golden Slipper winner who wins a Group 1 as an older horse, put the incentive there. Yeah. For a Caulfield Guineas winner to do so as an older horse, put the incentive there, because if it's not, we just won't have him on the track, and that ain't good for the sport.
And we had So You Think retired. Admittedly, he went to England to be a shuttle, to develop his shuttle, but they campaigned him.
Yeah, and he was a dual Cox Plate winner.
And he was already a dual Cox Plate winner. They could have left him here in Australia and campaigned him again for another year, and then stood him for his 60 or 100,000 here. But they took the gamble to campaign him overseas and give the horse some international exposure and improve his value.
What did you make on the track, Dan? Roar of the Scent was dominant.
I'm very wary of heavy tracks, especially in races over a bit of distance, especially 3-year-old fillies over a bit of distance, because most of them don't stay. So she's brilliant.
Yep.
Great ride. I'll be very good.
And massive margin wins in restricted age races. Now, probably the last one was like that was Machine, who ultimately didn't stay in the autumn. She won an Australian Guineas against what has been proven to be a very poor form race and didn't really come up in the spring.
Oh, look, I've got no doubt she's a very good filly.
Very good.
No doubt at all.
But does it make him a champion? No, not unless they do it as a
But she'll be favourite for the Caulfield Cup. I'll guarantee you. There's a 3-year-old filly every year favourite for the Caulfield Cup.
Should be 50s, minimum. Minimum.
She's 50 to 1 running it.
And what did you make of the Doncaster?
It was a great race. I actually tweeted out, I don't often tweet out my tips, but when it was raining at about 10 o'clock, I said, you've got to back Red Tracer or Sacred Falls.
Yeah. And Sacred Falls had terrific Kiwi data leading into that race.
He had a wet track form, but he was a 3-year-old with no weight. He was going to suck along 3 parts of the way back in the field, and you had to throw him in. And he had the it's a done deal form. I know he was beaten by lengths, but his form was sound. And so he was terrific odds. And I'm glad. I hope some of my couple hundred Twitter followers had something on him, but because I didn't.
And just in closing, you can get my stuff for Racetrack Ralphy app, $4.49 when you want to have a look at the Melbourne form. But Dan, on the thoroughbred, you've had a little comparison between Manicato and Black Caviar.
I'm a little bit disturbed that some of our greats are being forgotten in the euphoria, the Wakely-like euphoria for
it's good news she's on the front page of the paper.
Waxing lyrical about the great mare. We forget about how good the others were.
Yep.
She's great.
What's the stat with Manicato to finish with?
Manicato won 25 stakes races in
Yep.
his career,
Yep.
from 2 to 7 or 8 year old. 25.
Yep.
All those 25 stakes races are now Group 1s.
You can read about that. The Thoroughbred. Is it thoroughbred.com.au?
Thoroughbred.com.au.
All the best.